Right, in 3, 2, 1, and we are live.
Live. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning, good morning. Good morning indeed. It's Wednesday, the day before Thanksgiving. And we release every Thursday. We told you we're going to be recording every Thursday. However,
Due to the holiday.
due to some turkey eating festivities that are going to take place tomorrow, we felt it would be more suitable to record today. And this way you have all Thursday to watch our show.
Yeah. And you know, I make my turkey the old fashioned way. I let my mom do it.
Yeah, I think it's better that way, to be honest with you.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. So anyway, we're going to get into we'll finish up on what we got going on Thanksgiving, all of the between the football matches, the formal dining, all of the food and everything that goes into that, all the running around. I think as you become an adult, it becomes more and more stressful, right?
Yeah.
So we'll dive into that at the end of the show. But first, Stephanie, tell us what else we're going to be talking about today.
Well, today we have some media buzz. I know Abel has some information from a couple local realtors he'd like to share. So we're going to share that with you. And then we'll get into our regular buyer scenarios, buyer solutions, and then some tips and tricks on working with your spouse.
That always scares me. I don't know. It's just, it's scary. Working with the spouse. I still can't believe we do it, but I am glad that we do.
Yeah.
Because we're not only learning a lot about ourselves or each other, we're learning a lot about ourselves too, right?
Yeah.
Because I think nobody holds you accountable more than your spouse.
Your significant other, for sure.
Yeah. Cool. All right. So Stephanie, lead us away. What direction are we headed in first?
So first, we're going to start with some media buzz. Abel pulled some good information today from a couple of local realtors. I think the first one we're going to hear from is SB Tovar.
Yeah. So SB Tovar, shout out to her. She's a newer real estate agent, but certainly isn't new to real estate investing. And I follow her on social media. I mean, she was a friend of yours since high school.
Yes.
And so now she's in the thick of it here in the Fresno market. And so she posted earlier this morning that according to calculated risks for the week ending in November 18th, there were 47.7% more homes available for sale than there were the same time in 2021. And this is obviously very telling to where the market has been, right? That correlation between houses available and the amount of loan applications that have been taken year over year. We're seeing those same type of decreases, right? We're seeing which if we have less buyers, then there's less shoppers, or we have less people qualifying for home, there's less shoppers. And that's creating more and more inventory available, right?
Okay, so more inventory is not a good thing.
No, it depends on who you are, right? And so we're not necessarily saying this is a bad thing.
Okay.
More inventory, and I always use those basic economic principles of supply and demand, right? So when there are more supply, typically that does make it to where we convert over from a seller's market to a buyer's market, right? It doesn't mean that the housing market's set to plummet. It simply means that buyers have more opportunity in this type of market because there's abundance of homes, right, available for sale, right? So sellers can't be as picky as maybe they were last year because last year they had something of high value, which was an available house for sale, right?
Yeah, it was very different last year.
Yeah, and that alone was difficult, right? That alone, we had tons of people who were qualified, actively seeking, submitting offers, but yet couldn't get them accepted simply because there was no inventory, and what was for sale had 30 to 40 other offers on it, right?
Bidding wars
There was
going on.
There was a lot of bidding wars, right? And in that environment, it was a seller's market, right? So this news right here shouldn't come as a surprise. It's very much so by design. Right. We talked all year. We've been talking about these rising interest rates. Interest rates have doubled year over year, by the way. And this is the fastest growing pace of interest rates increasing year over year that we've experienced. But again, it's by design because the intention is to slow down the consumers, to slow down consumption, right? Slow down inflation. And so we see this now coming to work with the data that we're actually getting as the inflation numbers start to improve. We are starting to see that alleviate. But then in the housing market, more and more inventory available, making it a more of a buyer's market. So yes, despite, and we'll continue to say this, despite the interest rates being higher than what you may be used to, now is a very good time to get yourself some incentive, right? To get yourself a home. And I always say, include the pool table, include the washer and dryer, pay for some of my closing costs or reduce the asking price. You may not be able to get all of those things, but even if you can get one, you're already in a much better situation than you were last year.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was a very good post. Certainly sparked a lot of. It really just went to support kind of the things that we kind of already knew, right? We know that by design, this is what the direction that they were trying to push. The Feds were trying to push the housing market in order to slow down consumption, right? Slow down the demand, increase the supply. When you increase the supply, pricing can get reduced just a tad bit. So yeah, very good post there.
Awesome. And then you have something from Chris Arias, another local realtor here.
Yeah, so my buddy Chris Arias, he is a realtor / coach. He does all kinds of. He has a local gym here, Madera MMA, and he coaches jiu-jitsu and Muay Thai and striking, and he's so he kind of comes across real estate with more of a coaching from a coaching background, right? And so I always enjoy his posts. If you're not following him, follow him. Here's his post from today. It says you're breaking generational curses. That's why things don't come so easy for you. You're who your bloodline has been waiting for, right? And of course it has Tommy from
Peaky Blinders.
Peaky Blinders, yeah.
Nice.
And so this one's pretty cool, right? And when I thought about this and how it relates to real estate, I can't help but to think of, we're everyday people by every means. We are everyday people, and we have huge families, so we get to see and experience a lot of everyday people, and we get to live that. And I think that's very powerful for us. I think we're very fortunate in that right. But or so when I think about people who are investing in houses, right? It's very easy for people to invest in a house for themselves that they're going to live in, right? Mm-hmm. The traditions, the values, everything that we're surrounded by, everything that our family believes is very much so like, yes, build a home for your family, grow old in it, all of those things, right? Yeah. We know somebody within reach that has done that. Our uncles, our parents, our grandparents, our aunts, our uncles, cousins, siblings. Somebody we know has taken that leap. They've purchased a home. They've reaped the rewards, by the way, of equity that owning real estate brings you, right? Mm-hmm. They have equity. They have leverage. They have financial leverage because of it. And so when it's our turn to buy our first home, we have a lot of support, right? And we have a lot of people that are sitting around the barbecue or sitting around the barbecue pit who are encouraging, hey, mijo, that's a great idea. Your Thea and I did it, and they kicked, it's been the best thing for us, right? And because of that, we've been able to have financial leverage and be able to do this and that, right? Mm-hmm. And so we get all of this support, but when it comes to the home number two, right? And I'm not talking about selling the home number one, upgrading and getting and replacing it with home number two. When we're talking about home number two, investment properties, rental properties, now all of a sudden those people within reach that we used to lean on for advice and encouragement, they're probably no longer there because they don't have the experience themselves to do that, right? Yeah. And so I think of those generational curses, right? And it's not necessarily a curse, but it is more of an absence of knowledge, an absence of experience, which could essentially be a curse, right?
Yeah, and which did affect us with our going from our first home to our second home, right?
Yeah, it did. And I'm glad you brought that up because we very much so experienced that, right? Mm-hmm. So, and what we're talking about is just we have all the encouragement in the world to buy home number one, but when it's time to buy the investment properties, not a lot of people are engaged in that. And so we have
Or they
purchased,
see risk in it,
they
right?
see too much risk.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's, hey, that's risky, oh
Yeah,
man,
are
just,
you sure you wanna
just
do
focus
that?
on, just focus on buying your first home and paying your bills. And that's all you need, But with our experience, we bought our house in 2009, right after the big housing bubble crash and all of that stuff. So,
I was going to say the Big Bang. That's not
so
it.
yeah, not the Big Bang. So, we bought our house in 2009. It was our very first home. We paid $107,000 for it.
Mm-hmm.
It was, just a steal to say the least.
Yeah.
And now that same property that same home worth $300,000, right? Now we sold in 2016 or 17. We sold in 2017, and when we sold, we were able to net about $120,000 off of it, right? So for us, we were like, man, this is awesome. We made a killing, right?
Yeah.
Little did we know, hang on to that house for another 5 years, and you have another $100,000 of equity sitting there, right? Not to mention when you start a loan at that was that low, your monthly payment's a lot lower. And so not only would we have been, more equity heavy on it, we would have had the leverage of being cash flow positive because of rental income. Yeah. And so, but we weren't in the mortgage business during that time. And so, we were a little bit illiterate to, how mortgage financing worked, how real estate worked, how to, leverage multiple properties and the benefit of it. Right.
Yeah.
And so we chose the route to sell, roll all the equity over into essentially our dream home,
yes.
which it very much so was. And so for us, it's hard to be upset about that because we did get the home that we dreamt about.
Yeah.
But at the same time, knowing what we know now, we could have very much so still bought that dream home and retained the first home as a rental. Mm-hmm. And by today's mark, we could have been cash flowing at least $800 off of it, right? We would have did a refi on that property, pulled out the equity necessary to buy the new one, and even if it wasn't the 20% down, even if our loan amount was even higher, that would have given us a couple $100 higher of a monthly payment, right?
Yeah,
a couple $100, but we should have saw the vision of, okay, this mortgage, the new mortgage we're assuming is going to be $200 more, but we're going to make that up on the rental income that we're generating on our previous property, right?
Yeah.
And that's just, I don't know. What do you think?
I think,
Does that upset you?
No, I'm not filled with regret. I think, we live and we learn, and I look at it as a learning opportunity for the future, right? So.
Yeah, and I think we
won't do that again.
I think, but it makes us better consultants in the industry.
Yeah, definitely.
Because we lived it and we've experienced it, and it's very easy to kind of see some of these people who are millionaires and giving financial advice, and they're like, do it like this, and that, right? But very rare do you hear the advice of people who say, shoot, I missed out.
Yeah,
I should have done this, right?
Yeah.
And again, it's hard to think that, well, we messed up because we got what we wanted ultimately, right? But again, if we're playing that long-term game of, establishing a portfolio of investments, that's where we could have captured that second home, and so, yeah. So anyway, I really like those two posts. So shout out to Chris Arias and SB Tovar. Very, very good stuff. And if you continue to follow us and you're posting things, we'll grab post if you're in the industry, or if you send us content, we'd be happy to share your post and talk about that, especially if it strikes a chord with what we're planning on talking about that day, right?
Yeah.
So very cool.
Yeah. And so Abel, did you have any interesting scenarios with buyers over this last week that you want to talk about?
There's always interesting scenarios when it comes to buyers, and it's a good reminder, right, that we do this every single day. And every single day we're talking with a new client, we're talking with a new situation, we're in new different scenarios, new situations, new obstacles present themselves, and the client, that's their very first time, right? And so, sometimes it's good to, slow down and reiterate some of the requirements and what's what when it comes to qualifying for a home loan, right? So today's experience trick is going to be in reference to credit. 'Cause we talk about the three things needing to qualify for a home loan. You need credit, income, and assets, right? And so those are your CIAs.
You just gave me a flashback to studying for my test.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I better not answer this. What if I get it wrong?
Yeah, so you have your credit, your income, and your assets. And on the credit portion, oftentimes you'll see a lot of lenders, a lot of realtors, a lot of content being pushed out that says 580 credit score, 620 credit score, right? And we're and those are accurate, right? Those are the minimum qualifying requirements in reference to the score itself. But I do want our people, our followers, our clientele to understand that the credit score is gets you access or gets you into the door, but there's still other layers that you have to get through in order to be deemed qualified, right?
Yeah.
So there's more to your credit report than simply your score.
Just the number.
Right. Yeah. And so, there again, this is, when I'm thinking of this scenario that I've recently dealt with, it's like, well, my credit score is over the minimum requirement. Why am I not being approved, right? And so, again, we deal with conforming loans. And so, what that means is we follow the guidelines set by FHA, Fannie, Freddie, and with that come their underwriting, their desktop underwriting. And basically, a desktop underwriter is probably what it sounds like, right? It's a computer-generated approval that they use. So we complete the application. Once we upload it into their system, it'll read everything, credit, income, assets, and everything in fine detail. It populates a score that then determines whether or not that client is qualified. And the magic wording is approve eligible. If we get an approve eligible, that means we meet the standards of the qualifying mortgage, and most likely, if based off of whatever we put into that information, if we can back it up with supporting documents, it's going to go. It's going to be approved, and we have the green light essentially, right? Now, some banks do have overlays, meaning they have additional rules that they have to follow, so you'll have to watch out for those. But during the DU process or evaluation, when they're scoring your credit, they are not just looking at the credit score. They are looking at delinquencies. They're looking at charge-offs, collections. They're reading all of those things. How many days late? How many day lates do you have, right? How many 30-day lates do you have? 60-day, 90 days. All of that is taken into consideration.
Yeah, because they want to make sure that you're able to pay your mortgage and that you don't have a history of not paying things, because they're not going to loan you money just because, oh, you have a 620 credit score, like, cool, here's the money. It's like, no, we have to be able to, make sure that you can actually, that you're going to pay.
Yeah, and I mean, it is a very neat tool. So if you are the bank, right? If you're the bank, you're the one willing to take the risk and you're the one letting these clients borrow money.
Yeah.
And so these tools like DU are a great way to assess those risks, right? And which is why a lot of banks lean on those type of approvals. That approve eligible is very important, because if they have any intention on selling that loan in the secondary market, then they have to have that approve eligible, right? Otherwise, that loan is going to be deemed high risk. And nobody's going to want to touch that, right?
Yeah.
And so that's very important to know. So it's not just, okay, great, I got my credit score to this acceptable level. It's more so about, how did your credit score get there, right? And obviously, if you have a 700 plus credit score, how you got there, there's going to be a lot more positive things than negative things. But if you're at let's say a 600 or a 582, which would be the very minimum 580 requirement for FHA, they want to know, well, how did you get so low, right? Now, if it's delinquencies, charge-offs from 3 or 4 years ago, where hey, you had some things going on, most likely that's not going to affect you, as hey, you were just late last month on a bill, right?
Yeah.
You have a 30-day late last month. Just earlier this year, you had a car go into, be charged off and repoed. All of that's showing on your credit, or you have liens or judgments on your credit. All of those things are going to have a negative effect on that approval, and most likely it's not going to go in your favor. So that's going to be that is certainly my tip there, or my real life scenario
Yeah.
from the field. It's, credit score alone is not the only thing that is being taken into consideration. It's the overall activity and behavior of how you're handling these accounts. So,
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, what's next, Stephanie?
Real buyer solutions.
Yeah. So, piggybacking off of that, right?
Yeah.
The solutions are to first, knowledge is power, right? So if we know what banks are looking for, if we come into it already understanding that, then we can kind of set our expectations on what we can expect, right?
Yeah.
But the last thing that I want people to think is like, oh shoot, I have these things, I'm not going to qualify, why bother? That's the worst thing, or worst mentality to have, right?
Yeah.
You should certainly still reach out, certainly still complete an application, because there are oftentimes things that we can do to help offset, right?
Yeah.
We call them in the industry, we call them offsetting factors, right? Yes, you have a 30-day late, but check this out. They've been renting here for 3 years and they haven't been late a single time, a single month they haven't been late, right? That's an offsetting factor. Those are things that we can do to leverage and help overcome obstacles such that may exist in our way, right?
Yeah.
So there are several things that can still be done. Or, I have clients that are buying houses, in escrow now that I met a year ago. And sometimes it takes that long. Sometimes, I've stayed in contact with them. I'm reaching out to them, following up, giving them action plans, evaluating their scores, evaluating what's on their scores, connecting them with maybe credit repair companies, connecting them with CPAs that can maybe get things in line a little bit so that they're not feeling lost or alone throughout the process, really helping them get to that next stage. And sometimes we can do that in like 30 days and it's great. We move forward, they buy the house. But there are times where, 12 months later, they're getting the keys to their house. But I think, if we've learned anything in life, right, it's that, time is going to keep ticking. And so
but that's why it's important to, don't just say, oh, never, not me, not going to happen. You have to meet with someone and put together a game plan and work toward that. Don't just say, no, not going to happen. Because it is possible. It might not seem like it, but if you meet with a professional, then, you can get a game plan put together.
Yeah, I agree. And so, don't get discouraged. I like that advice. Great job. So reach out to us. We'd be happy to help you. And again, it's not all about just hurry up and buy. And we're only dealing with people who are ready today. We have a list of individuals who, we're constantly nurturing their situations and guiding them to a time of approval. And you're on your own time, so don't race against anybody else.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Cool. All right, Steph. Well, what's on the menu tomorrow?
What's on the menu tomorrow?
We stay pretty busy, right? So we have some bouncing around to do, which isn't new to us. We've been doing it for a long time. Different family members.
Yeah.
And
at one point we had 4 Thanksgivings going. Yeah. Now we've dwindled it down to 2, 3, 2. We kind of have to go back and forth.
And I know we used to complain about it and be really negative towards the idea of oh my gosh, I have 4 Thanksgivings and this is terrible and we don't want to do it. But as time has progressed and families start to get bigger and kind of break off on their own, and you start losing family members due to illnesses or old age, you start really missing those moments and realizing how blessed you truly were. So, I have no problem loading up the kids and going to and from anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, me too.
So what's your, what are you looking forward to the most tomorrow?
my mom's stuffing.
I am a stuffing fan for sure.
What
So,
about you?
Yeah, I am looking forward to watching the Dallas Cowboys.
No, we just lost
Yeah.
we just lost
No,
viewers,
they're
babe.
America's team, so hopefully they're watching and supporting. No, but I've growing up, I've always had two Thanksgivings, right? And it was lunchtime with my Perez side, where it's like football jerseys, grab a plate, sit on the couch, and chow down and enjoy the game,
Yeah.
right? Afterwards, you go outside, or even during, go outside and you're throwing the football with the cousins, playing tackle, get all dirty. It was great. About 30 minutes until 5 o'clock, mom would come out with all the fancy clothes, right? All right, time to change,
I'm that mom now.
And so we would get all ready, and we would head over to my Messiah's side. And that's more of the sit down, candles are lit, everybody's going around the table saying what they're thankful for, and it's a little bit more intimate. But there is no right answer. There was no, right version for me. Both versions equally as beautiful.
Yeah.
And I look forward to both of them. And that's why today, even as an adult, I continue to try to experience both of those types of Thanksgivings, right?
Yeah.
I always watch my football game with my jersey, and now I'll just throw on a blazer over my jersey. So that I don't have to change. I don't have to change. Yeah.
Yeah. Mine growing up was a little bit different because we didn't have to. I mean, I think there were a couple years where it was like, the two sides did their own thing. But for the most part, my parents, ever since they were married, they would bring both of their sides of the family together in their house. And so we would have like a joint Thanksgiving. And so for me, it was always cool because it was like I had both sides of my family together. And that's how we did Thanksgiving. So it was like one big party. So, and lots of good food.
Very neat.
Yeah.
Well, I'm certainly looking forward to Thanksgiving with you and the kids.
Yeah, me
and
too.
It's always a good time for sure.
Now, we didn't talk about our tips and tricks.
For what?
Working with your spouse. Were you avoiding that?
I always avoid that.
No,
I always tend to avoid that.
I was just going to give a little tidbit, and then if you want to add to it, you can. I was just going to say, thinking about it recently, I know people probably think, okay, so, working with your spouse, how does that work? You guys are always, together and doing things together. Well, no. I think what I've learned is it is important to respect each other's personal schedules. You don't always have to schedule everything together.
Right.
So there's some times where I'm like, hey, what are we doing today? And Abel's like, oh, well, I have this with this client, this with this realtor, this with that. And it's like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah, go do your thing. So it's don't get offended if your significant other has things on their calendar that don't include you, because that's okay. He has his own clients, his own relationships, his own book of business, and I'm working on mine. And I think that's okay. It's important to, respect those professional boundaries.
Yeah, for sure. And, for me, with you being newer to the industry, I tend to want to be kind of like a helicopter parent sometimes, and okay, let me help you, or let me go with you, or let me, tell you what to say. But, the beauty of obtaining experience is, of course, we always have our mentors along with us. But at the same time, it's, kind of, learning on our own and learning how to kind of adapt on the fly without any crutches. And I think that's what really forces us to kind of grow, or forces an individual to grow. So, while, respecting that space on both ways, whether it's, hey, that's fine. I have things to do. You have things to do. But for me too, it's I gotta, try to peel back a little bit, let you crash, let you kind of, experience that, because it will help you grow as well. Right. And ultimately our goal is, not to just have this single book of business, but to, work, in unison with each other, while, kind of, tapping into our own fields of market, right? Because we're very much so different people. We interact with different types of people, and I think that's what makes us so intrigued to form this partnership, and not just a marriage partnership, but a business partnership, and really tackle on this industry. So yeah. So there's some tips there. It's always so awkward for me.
Why?
I don't know. It's funny. So anyway, well, we thank everybody for joining us today. It's about 30-minute show. I think we'll cut it right there.
Okay.
I have a client meeting coming up, and yeah, you get to shadow.
I get to go. Huh?
No, you get to shadow.
I get to shadow you and then go to the grocery store later because
Yeah.
I still have things to buy for tomorrow.
You shouldn't have waited that long. All right. Well, thank you guys for watching. I'm Abel Perez.
I'm Stephanie Perez.
And we are the Married Loan
Officers.
Like and subscribe, share with your friends and family. We are trying to grow this channel, and we want you to come along for the ride. Thank you. Have a great day.